Welcome, my bountiful friends. It's time to brush up on your Latin. Exultat orbis gaudiis, and dig out your four omnipotent sovereigns from your pocket to pay for a glorious drink to challenge the Druids, because today we're going to be delving deep into one of the foundational works of literary modernism, and arguably the most famous book of Irish literature ever, James Joyce's Ulysses, or Ulysses, depending on your pronunciation. I think I will opt for the American Ulysses, as I personally find it more appealing. Several people walk across old Dublin town during a summer day at the turn of the 20th century and mull over the issues, minutiae and intricacies of their daily life. But how and why did this book come to be? What's the author's story? What was the novel's impact on literature, and how does it fare today? As usual, I'll be diving in deep, and as always, there will be as many spoilers as there are off-duty soldiers and drunks. Not that it'll matter a damn in this instance, and there will be plenty of opinions too, which is probably needed, to be fair. James Joyce was born on February 2nd, 1882 in Rathgar, a suburb of Dublin, Ireland, into a large Catholic family. He was a gifted student and attended several prestigious Jesuit schools. He went on to study modern languages at University College, Dublin. As a young man, he was deeply interested in literature, languages and philosophy, showing early signs of his distinctive literary style. Rejecting the strict Catholicism and nationalism that surrounded him, he developed a strong sense of individualism and intellectual independence. In 1902, he left Ireland for Paris to study medicine, but soon abandoned his studies in favour of a literary career. In 1904, he left Ireland permanently, living in cities such as Zurich, Trieste and Paris, where he taught English and pursued his writing. He would go on to write some of the most significant pieces of literature about his homeland, while being absent from it, choosing instead to live and die on the continent. Ulysses is one of the most significant and influential novels of the 20th century, known for its groundbreaking narrative techniques and rich allusions. Its development and publication history was long and complex, marked by innovation, controversy and censorship. Joyce began writing it in 1914 while in the Italian city of Trieste. Shortly after, he had completed a portrait of the artist as a young man. He initially envisaged the novel as a short story to be part of Dubliners, but the scope of the work quickly expanded. He spent over 7 years writing the novel, working in various European cities, including Zurich and Paris. His process was meticulous and deeply layered, incorporating multiple literary styles, stream of consciousness narration, and a dense web of allusions, puns, and symbolic structures. The book became increasingly complex as he progressed, particularly from the Oxen of the Sun episode onward, where he began to experiment more radically with form and language. The novel's first serialised publication began in March 1918, before it was even completed, in the American literary magazine The Little Review, which was edited by Margaret Anderson and Jane Heap. The serialisation continued until 1920, but was halted after the Nausicaa episode, which depicted Leopold Bloom's masturbation, and then subsequently led to obscenity charges in the US. The editors were convicted, and the novel was effectively banned in America for more than a decade. Despite the controversy, Joyce continued work on the novel, eventually completing it in 1921. Finding a publisher was difficult due to the book's reputation and legal risks. Finally, Sylvia Beach, an American expatriate and the owner of the Shakespeare and Company bookshop in Paris, offered to publish the novel under her imprint. The first edition was printed on Joyce's 40th birthday. February 2nd, 1922, in a limited run of 1,000 copies. The novel's reputation grew despite censorship. In the UK and the US, Ulysses was smuggled, privately circulated, and reviewed with equal amount of awe and outrage. A landmark moment came in 1933 when US District Judge John M. Wolseley ruled that Ulysses was not in fact obscene, which allowed its legal publication by Random House in 1934, and therefore wider publication from there on. Leopold Bloom is the central protagonist and is a modern-day Odysseus, or Ulysses. He is an advertising canvasser by trade. The novel centres on and describes his wanderings around Dublin. He is the embodiment of the modern everyman hero. He's often isolated, introspective and humane. He's also Jewish, which makes him very much the outsider in a heavily Catholic Dublin. Molly Bloom is Leopold's wife and is a Penelope figure. She's a singer, although is off stage for most of the novel, but is central to the emotional undercurrent. She engages in an affair with Blazes Boylan on the same day as the narrative. Her inner monologue gives intimate insights into female sexuality, memory and emotional life, which was groundbreaking literary history at the time. Stephen Dedalus is the novel's secondary protagonist. He's a Telemachus figure and a young teacher, as well as an aspiring artist. He's notably the protagonist of Joyce's earlier novel, A Portrait of the Artist as a Young Man, which is based partly on Joyce himself. Dedalus is highly intellectual and alienated. He wrestles with philosophical, religious and existential questions. He rejects institutional authority, whether it be the church, nation or family. He encounters Bloom late in the novel, and an ambiguous father-son bond is hinted at. Simon Dedalus is Stephen's father, although he is unable to connect with his son. He was formerly respectable, but is now a drunk and a financial failure. He appears during Paddy Dingham's funeral and in later episodes, and is representative of Ireland's decaying past. Buck Mulligan is a comic foil to Stephen Dedalus, representing irreverence and materialism. He's a medical student and shares a Martello tower with Stephen. He opens the novel by mocking religion, parodying priestly ritual. He's sharp, witty and annoying to Stephen. Blazes Boylan is Molly Bloom's lover. He's a modern-day suitor paralleling Penelope's suitors. He's a concert manager and has a sexual encounter with Molly during the day. He's often viewed as a shallow, flashy man and is a source of emotional pain for Bloom. Gertie MacDowell is a Nausicaa figure and is the object of Bloom's voyeuristic fantasy. In a notable scene, she sits on the beach in episode 13 while Bloom watches her and abuses himself. Her chapter parodies sentimental romantic prose. Bella Cohen is a brothel madam. She hosts Bloom and Stephen in episode 15, Circe, where hallucinations dominate as her brothel becomes a surreal stage for inner psychic dramas. Zoe, Kitty and Florrie are prostitutes in Bella Cohen's brothel. They interact with Bloom and Stephen in the hallucinatory Circe episode. Lenehan and Corley are a pair of shady Dubliners who originally appear in Joyce's Dubliners stories. They are seen hustling and scheming. Lenehan is cynical while Corley exploits a servant girl. The citizen is an archetype representing Irish nationalism taken to xenophobic extremes. He's symbolic of bigoted nationalism, which contrasts with Bloom's humanism. He argues aggressively with Bloom in a pub and throws a biscuit tin at him as he leaves. He's also a parody of the Cyclops, and this is because he sees things narrowly through one perspective only. He has tunnel vision and cannot see things from anyone else's perspective. Ulysses famously unfolds over the course of a single specific day, June 16th, 1904, in Dublin, Ireland, which was then part of the United Kingdom. Despite the stylistic complexity, the novel's plot is actually relatively simple, since it's so heavy and thematic with illusional depth. The novel follows three main characters, Stephen Dedalus, Leopold Bloom and Molly Bloom. Inspired by Homer's Odyssey, which is about a hero's epic 10-year journey returning home from war, attempting to get back to his wife but encountering dangers galore, Joyce's novel reimagines this epic through the lens of modern life, substituting ancient Greek heroes with ordinary Dubliners, and mythic adventure with everyday experiences. It should be noted that Ulysses is the Latin version of the name Odysseus, which itself has its own meaning. The novel opens with Stephen Dedalus, a young, intellectually ambitious teacher, who after a tense morning, he leaves the Martello Tower he lives in and goes about his day teaching at school, visiting a library and engaging in philosophical musings. He is searching for meaning and direction while wrestling with questions of identity, art and religion. Parallel to Stephen's day, the novel introduces Leopold Bloom, a Jewish advertising canvasser in his late 30s. Bloom's morning is quiet and filled with mundane activities. He prepares breakfast, attends a funeral, and goes about his business in the city. He is gentle, reflective, and observant, with a deep inner life revealed through his stream of consciousness. Throughout the day, Bloom avoids going home, knowing his wife, Molly, is planning to meet her lover, Blazes Boylan, for an affair. His thoughts are tinged with melancholy, but also a persistent empathy and curiosity about the world around him. The two characters' paths eventually move towards convergence. In the evening, Bloom and Stephen finally meet in a brothel in the Circe episode, which is unquestionably the most hallucinatory and surreal chapter of the novel. Bloom takes on a fatherly role towards Stephen, rescuing him from trouble and offering companionship. This symbolic relationship echoes that of Odysseus and Telemachus in the Odyssey. Bloom as the wandering father and Stephen as the searching son. After leaving the brothel, Bloom brings Stephen back to his home at 7 Eccles Street for a coffee and a brief conversation. Though they do not form a lasting bond, their encounter offers a moment of tentative connection and mutual recognition. Stephen departs and Bloom finally returns to his bed. The novel closes with the famous soliloquy of Molly Bloom, delivered in an uninterrupted stream of consciousness. In it, Molly reflects on her life, her marriage, her sensuality and her memories, ending with her affirmation of love and life in the word yes. Ulysses is renowned for its rich, complex style and distinctive atmosphere, which contributes significantly to its status as a masterpiece of modernist literature. Very few books come anywhere near it, even to this day, for its challenge and novelty. The novel's experimental form, stream of consciousness technique and deep psychological insight create an immersive and multifaceted reading experience quite unlike a standard novel. The most defining feature of Ulysses is its stylistic experimentation. Rather than adopting a single narrative voice or consistent prose style, Joyce structures the novel episodically, with each of its 18 chapters employing a different literary technique or tone. The early episodes begin with relatively conventional narrative forms, but as the novel progresses, it increasingly plays with language and structure. For example, Oxen of the Sun mimics the development of the English language, beginning with Latin-influenced prose and then evolves through parodies of various historical writing styles. In Circe, the narrative transforms into a surreal, dramatic script full of hallucinations and symbolic transformations. As already mentioned, the book uses a stream of consciousness device. This technique allows readers to follow the inner thoughts of characters in real time, blurring the boundary between the external world and internal monologue. Through this, Joyce offers a highly intimate view of his characters' psyches, particularly Leopold Bloom and Stephen Dedalus. Thoughts, memories, sensory perceptions and associations flow freely and often without conventional punctuation, creating a texture that feels both chaotic and lifelike. This narrative method also reflects the modernist emphasis on subjectivity and the fragmentation of experience. The atmosphere is deeply rooted in the city of Dublin, which Joyce famously claimed could be reconstructed from his book if ever destroyed. The novel is saturated with rich, vivid details of the city's life in 1904, its streets, pubs, shops, sounds and smells. This realism grounds the novel despite its stylistic complexity. From the morning rituals of breakfast and bathing to the quiet melancholy of a cemetery or the raucous energy of a tavern, the rhythms and texture of ordinary life are captured with remarkable fidelity and affection. The mundane becomes epic, mirroring the structure of Homer's Odyssey. Each event in the novel is layered with cultural, literary, mythological and philosophical references. This simultaneously gives the atmosphere an incredible dual quality. It is both grounded in reality while at the same time being elevated to the realm of myth. Ulysses is very much a theme novel at its heart and core. Though the plot unfolds over just one seemingly ordinary day in Dublin, the novel touches on profound questions of identity, time, memory, sexuality, religion, and the search for meaning. These themes are explored through the inner lives of its three main characters and through Joyce's inventive literary techniques. Identity and selfhood are central themes. The characters constantly reflect on who they are and how they fit into the world around them. Stephen, a young intellectual, struggles with his Irish identity, religious upbringing, and artistic ambitions. He is caught between his past and his future, searching for a role that feels authentic, while Bloom, by contrast, is more grounded, but his identity is shaped by his marginalisation as a Jewish man in a Catholic society, as well as his emotional distance from his wife and the memory of his deceased son. Both characters are in search of connection and purpose, embodying the modernist concern with fragmented identity in a disorientating world. And their relationship as well is another theme in terms of fatherhood and paternity. The relationship between them, when they meet at the end of the novel, carries a symbolic weight as a modern reflection of the father-son dynamic in Homer's Odyssey. Bloom, having lost his son Rudy in infancy, finds in Stephen a possible spiritual heir. Stephen in turn has lost his own father as a guiding figure. Their tentative connection suggests the possibility of human solidarity across generations and backgrounds. The search for meaning in everyday life is another important theme. Ulysses elevates ordinary actions, walking through a city, going to a funeral, eating lunch, into profound explorations of the human experience. Through its dense detail and stream of consciousness technique, the novel shows how much thought, feeling, and history can be contained within the seemingly mundane. It suggests that the epic is not confined to ancient myths, but is present in the rhythms of our daily lives. Love, loss, and sexuality also pervades the novel. Bloom's thoughts often return to Molly and her infidelity, but also to memories of their intimacy and shared grief. Molly's final soliloquy, ending with her famous "yes," brings warmth and affirmation to the novel's close, celebrating the body, desire, and emotional complexity of marriage and womanhood. Catholicism plays a large and central part in Irish national identity, and religion and belief are examined critically and personally throughout this book. Stephen rejects the Catholicism of his upbringing, while Bloom's Jewish identity sets him apart from the dominant culture he lives within. The novel does not offer clear answers, but explores the spiritual and existential questions facing modern individuals. Since its publication in 1922, Ulysses has stood as one of the most celebrated and controversial works in modern literature. Its initial reception was marked by both admiration and outrage, and over time it has come to be recognised for what it always sought to be, a revolutionary novel that reshaped the boundaries of fiction. Early reactions were deeply divided. It was hailed by supporters for its bold experimentation with language, structure and form. Writers and intellectuals such as T.S. Eliot and Ezra Pound championed the modernist vision. Eliot famously called it a book to which all are indebted and from which none of us can escape. However, the novel's graphic content, especially its candid portrayal of sexuality and bodily functions, provoked widespread censorship. As mentioned earlier, its serialization resulted in the actual arrest of its editors, and there was a sustained battle that lasted over 10 years to enable the novel even to be published in the United States and the United Kingdom. In the decades that followed, it gained recognition as a foundational modernist text. It became a subject of intense scholarly study, particularly after the rise of literary theory in the mid-20th century. Critics and academics explored its structure, symbolism, use of mythology, and psychological depth, while the novel's stylistic diversity and linguistic inventiveness opened a new path for generations of new authors to veer away from established publishing norms. Despite its status as a classic, its dense prose, unorthodox style and wealth of hidden meanings have meant that it is a genuinely intimidating and difficult read for the average person. Even the premise of basing the novel on Homer's Odyssey suggests that the reader should have a basic understanding of the classics. While it is one of the few novels to actually be celebrated annually on Bloomsday, June 16th, by fans and scholars alike, who retrace the steps of Leopold Bloom through Dublin, its legacy is actually one of the most complex. Its influence on literature has been immense. It paved the way for stream of consciousness writing and inspired countless writers, including Samuel Beckett, William Faulkner and Virginia Woolf, to name a few. Its themes, which are identity, exile, memory, and the sacred within the ordinary, are all still relevant. It is a well-known book. It is a notorious book. And often it's also an unread book. It has a reputation as being one of the least read great books, with many readers not being able to push past the first few chapters. A Goodreads poll suggests that only 10 to 15% reached the end of the book. Ulysses is a literary touchstone, and for many, even a milestone in their own reading comprehension and maturity. It's a bold, transformative work that expanded the possibilities of fiction. Its legacy is evident in every piece of art we interact with that deviates from the expected norms, as it was one of the first books to push past the acceptable standards of its day, and to have the authenticity to stand or fall on its own terms, the readership and critics be damned alike. I was 20 when I first read this book, and it was not easy. I persevered and powered through it by sheer determination. Fortunately, I had the Oxford World Classics version, which comes with extensive notes, because I knew even then that I wouldn't have had the faintest idea what it was all about, or what was going on for much of the time without them. It's a quirky Irish novel, written by Ireland's most famous and arguably best author, and its appeal today will largely depend on a reader's interest in narrative experimentation, which is an aspect that shouldn't actually age. But there's also the question of their interest in Victorian Irish metropolitan culture, and that may prove to be a bit more niche for some. It presents something of a difficult historical period for many readers to engage with, as the attitudes towards race, class, gender, nations, and the concerns and dramas of that time are quite distinctly different from those of today, and may either jar or simply be unrelatable. Subject matter and setting aside, it will present a major challenge to a lot of readers who will often have to reread sentences or entire passages and fight to extract meaning and sense from it all. This is no book for casual reading, and perhaps its greatest secret is that it may have in fact been deliberately designed to be this way, carrying a hidden meta treasure at its heart. I suspect that the novel is in itself an odyssey for the reader, who must become a Ulysses-like figure as they take to the sea of pages of this voluminous tome and try to find familiar islands of sense and meaning on which to land. The novel is an epic undertaking or journey, and you are Ulysses and must struggle to return home by completing it, and forever be changed by the experience. If you haven't read it, and you're tired of formulaic characters, tedious prose styles, and obvious plot twists, then perhaps this is the antidote, and it's time to embark on your own odyssey. So what are your thoughts on this groundbreaking novel? Which experimental narrative did you find the most meaningful and enjoyable? Don't forget to like, subscribe and hit that bell icon for more deep dives into the world of literature. Until next time, keep reading and remember, the ordinary is epic. Human connection matters, even brief ones. Love and loss are inseparable, and language both reveals and obscures. Thank you. Good night.